Son of living, which is the activity of the found perfection of wisdom. This correctly and handling those five I guess also is in hand. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. It produces unceased, stainless, not without stains, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no smell, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, no phenomenon. There is no I element in soul, not including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance in soul, up to including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattva is relying and dwelling on the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear, having completely passed beyond error to reach the end point of Nirvana. All the Buddhas dwell in three times, also manifestly, completely awakening in the path of perfect, complete enlightenment and reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of wisdom, the mantra of the great knowledge, the fast mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, mantra that fully pacifies all suffering, truths, and is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhisoha Shariputra Samasaha perfection of wisdom like that. And also without concentration, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Villagana. Well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, with long gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by that Lord. Chanda Tsoke Chonam La, Chancho Badu Dani Kyapsachi, Dagi Chushigi Vitsonangi, Drola Panche Sangye Dopasho. Chanda Tsoke Chonam La, Chancho Badu Dani Kyapsachi, Dagi Chushigi Vitsonangi, Drola Panche Sangye Dopasho. Chanda Tsoke Chonam La, Chancho Badu Dani Kyapsachi, Dagi Chushigi Vitsonangi, Drola Panche Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, kind of. The mic was muted, so I unmuted it, and I think that everyone is getting sound. If you're not getting sound, then please, thank you. All right, so yes, sound. So what I thought of doing today was to look at one or two of the root downfalls, and then to focus on purification. Let's begin with one of the root downfalls. So I think that we've covered 5 as far as I remember. Let's look at the 6th one. I'll put it on the screen. This is it. Just a sec. Where is it? All right, so the 5th one. Actually, we spoke about the 5th one. So the 6th, if you disparage a path completely in all aspects, saying this is not something the Buddha taught in the canons of the 3 vehicles, it is a root downfall of abandoning the sublime Dharma. This is divided into 3 root downfalls, one each for abandoning the canons of the 3 vehicles. So I think that that's, relatively speaking, straightforward, right? So first of all, the three vehicles: hearers, solitude realizers, and bodhisattvas. Those are the three vehicles. The vehicle of bodhisattva is sometimes also called the Mahayana vehicle, right? So either the bodhisattva vehicles or Mahayana vehicles. Now, there are two: the hearer and solitude realizers vehicles are Hinayana vehicles. So if you abandon the Dhamma in saying that this is not something that the Buddha taught and so forth, it is considered a rude downfall in relation to your engaging vow. So remember that before we said, we spoke about rejecting the Mahayana teaching. So it seems that rejecting the Mahayana teaching, or claiming that these Mahayana teachings were not taught by the Buddha, or giving a wrong teaching in relation to that, is a rude downfall. So that was a more specific one. This is a more general one with respect to abandoning the Dhamma, right? So I think that sometimes, at least kind of, I find it in my own mind, now less than before, I have to admit, but there were those sets of teachings that I thought that I found it difficult to agree with. It's like sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone and kind of just listen to what the teachers are saying, or what the Buddha was saying, and to think that, well, this is how the teachings are presented to me. It's difficult to say it's not what the Buddha taught just because I don't like it.
Well, the Buddha said, check it out, don't accept it just because I said it. But with the proviso, if you can prove it wrong, chuck it out.
Yeah.
But then if you can't prove it wrong, well, it's just an obviously obscure mind. I don't understand it.
Yeah. I was more, I think, more forceful in my early days, kind of thing, rather than checking stuff out. If I didn't like it, I think myself, it's probably didn't say that, so I can do whatever I want. So anyway,
I think we're doing something right.
Yeah, I think that kind of, I'm learning how to tune myself out. Anyway, so that's a rude downfall. I think that it's quite straightforward. I wonder if anyone has a question or doubt or something that I want to bring up with respect to that. So I just put it on the screen again if you haven't got a chance to look at it. So if you disparage a path complete in all aspects, saying this is not something the Buddha taught in the canons of the three vehicles, it is a rude downfall of abandoning this sublime Dhamma. Actually, we learn about the Hinayana. Not only we learn about the Hinayana, most of the things that we practice are Hinayana practices, in that they're shared with the Hinayana. So we don't necessarily make distinctions between this is a practice of hearers and this is a practice of solitude realizers. No, we don't make usually such distinctions on a normal basis. So I think there's mostly disparaging now, saying that this is not something that the Buddha taught, that should be outside of those teachings and so forth, where it is actually where something was indeed taught in those canons. Anyway, that's quite straight. Right. Look at the next one, because we have time. Yeah. Did someone say anything? Okay. Okay. Next one is number 7. If due to ill will, you steal the saffron robes, be it in prison or cause an ordained person, with or without ethical discipline, to fall from ordination, it is a rude downfall of stealing the saffron robes of the ordained and causing them to fall from ordination and so forth. This is divided into 2 rude downfalls, that of stealing the saffron robes and so forth, and that of causing the ordained to fall from ordination. By the way, at the bottom of the page there is the list of downfalls is that cited in the 6th session Guru Yoga that we're used to. That's the common recitation, so we have none. The 6th one was abandoning the Dhamma through sectarianism, and the 7th is disrobing monks or nuns. So I think the 2 major things here, I think that one of them is very unlikely to happen to us. I mean, I guess to us here or people at home, you know. So if out of anger, the robes of a monastic, you beat them, you imprison them. I mean, do we have the power to imprison people? Probably not. No, so
Sorry, no.
I mean, like
amongst us.
Yeah, amongst us.
Yeah.
I think that kind of on a state level, or you know, if you have the power, then you can do that. But you know, I think that the notion here is that if you have anger, which is involved with the intention to harm against the monastics, and you steal the robes, you beat them, you imprison them, and so forth, you cause them to fall from, you know, you cause them to fall from ordination. That's a root downfall. There's another.
If you put in prison, it doesn't cause you to fall from ordination.
Yeah, if you put in prison, it doesn't cause it to fall from ordination. But I think that probably you can take into consideration, you know, I think that some events that are said to happen in Tibetan history, like for example, during the Cultural Revolution, then many monastics were imprisoned in different camps, but also some of them were forced to break the vows in public. So that's why I said that it is likely that none of us in this environment is likely actually to, I mean, very likely to incur that root downfall. But there's another one that says, in that section that says, or cause an ordained person with or without ethical discipline to fall from ordination, it is a root downfall of stealing the saffron robes of the ordained and cause them to fall from ordination. So again, this is, I'm not sure that this is something that we necessarily need to discuss out in the public amongst all of us, but I think that that also has to do with monastic discipline and the rules of a certain monastic institution, which I think that generally speaking for us in a monastic community such as this, we encounter those things every once in a while, and sometimes it's a struggle to know what's the right thing to do. So it's quite actually interesting when I look at my experience in working with Geshe Jamin and Geshe Jastirin, having a bigger monastic community here in the future, in the past. So sometimes we have more, sometimes we have less monastics. And I think that for most of us monastics, we can be strong-headed and difficult in the sense that I think that, in our environment, in our culture, to step out of this culture and decide that we're going to be Buddhist monks and nuns is probably not something that would happen in an ordinary way. So you have to be, I think, of a certain personal constitution to make that decision. I mean, of course, all of us make that decision depending on different circumstances. So not all of us become ordained for the same reasons, but still, I think that in general, when you look at many of the Western monks and nuns that we encounter, and some of them are pretty kind of strong-headed. To begin with, you have that strong personality factor in it. Then sometimes it's hard to live together, right? It's hard to live together sometimes, and we have rules of the community. And I remember that before, when we had some conflicts or tension in the community, sometimes we used to get advice from Geshe Jamin and Geshe Jastirin. And they say that in a monastery, in a big monastery, such as Seda and Drepung, where you have, for centuries, thousands of monks, they said that you have rules. Not always you agree with the rules, but if the rules are dropped, the community breaks apart. Yeah. And they said that basically, when you're in a monastery, you're expected to study. You're expected to participate in the activities that everyone participates in. So, the push, but of course, within reasonable boundaries. Not everyone studies. That monks that work at the office, at the library, doing different jobs for the monastery. Of course, not everyone studies, but still the expectation is that you study. So the push is push. And if you just don't feel like doing that, that's not a reasonable reason. So they will still push. They will still force you to do that. But at the end, there are ways for you to stay. But you're not going to get off lightly. It's still going to be a struggle. So you know, when we had some issues here before, the Geshe Jaman and Geshe Sering said, be reasonable. If you drop all the rules, you're kind of breaking the system. So, you know, it's hard for us. So we want to, first of all, we want to support each other. You know, you want to live in communities, although sometimes it can be difficult, it's also, I think, supportive. I mean, sometimes when we have difficult times, I think that it's easy to think about the difficulties and we ignore the fact that at least we have shared values. You know, we do have shared values. We have a common goal.
We've got a pretty good environmental karma too.
Yeah, we have good environmental karma, not only here, but I think that also in other centers. I think that when I go home and I speak with my childhood friends or friends from, you know, other times of my life, those which are not Buddhists, I have more in common with people here or with other Buddhist friends than with my childhood friends or family. You know, so we do have shared values, although we have difficulties between us. So, you know, we want to, in some sense, hold the system, hold it together, but also support each other in if we have difficulties. And that's always a fine balance. So here it says that, you know, in general, I link it up with this root downfall. If you cause someone to leave and then they fall from ordination, you need to look at your responsibility. However, if someone is a troublemaker and it comes at the expense of the integrity of the community, sometimes you have to make them leave. And this is also something that is happening at Sarah, Drepung, and so forth. If you don't abide by the monastery rules, you know, you get a warning. At the end, they ask you to leave. You know, so then you cannot really say that because you asked me to leave, I will now disrobe, and this is your responsibility, and therefore you're breaking your Bodhisattva vow. You know, you have to also take personal responsibility for your actions. And as the Geshe said before, if you find it difficult, it's better to withdraw rather than to break the community or to break the rules or the system of a community. So here it says that if you cause someone to fall from ordination with or with ethical discipline, this is how it is stated here. Where is that? All right. So if you cause an ordained person with or without ethical discipline to fall from ordination, it is a rude downfall of causing them to fall from ordination and so forth. So it might be that you know that someone in a monastic community is not guarding the vow well. Could be different situations, different things that they do. If you tell them that this is not a place for you to be, and anyway, it's better for you not to stay a monk, or better for you not to stay a nun, and you cause them in this way, you convince them to give up the vow, it is a rude downfall. So it's always good to be skillful about our approach if we deal with such situations, rather than being someone that instigates someone to relinquish the vow, tell them that it's not for them, that it's better for them not to be a monk or nun. It's good to look at how can we support them in remaining ordained, if it is possible. How can we provide them with assistance, with advice, and so forth. Now, here I speak about points in general. When you deal with things on the ground, you know, on a case-to-case basis, I guess that it's more complicated. The reality is always more complicated, but that's the spirit of things. I think that also in general, it is likely that not many of us, if any at all, will encounter situations in which we will cause an ordained person to fall from ordination. So in that sense, I think that although we have to be careful in those situations, we're still in some sense on the safe side. Do you agree?
I was just thinking of a situation, yes, in another centre where somebody had been thinking of disrobing but hadn't talked about it from their own side. And by the time they went to see the Geshe just said, asked the reason and laughed at the reason, and then said, it's your choice, you know. So the Geshe wasn't saying, I think you should.
Yeah.
But I think also it wasn't saying, you know, you must stay monastic, because that person's mind had already made up.
Yeah.
You know, they were already, you know, my mind's made up. So in every situation like that, but it just indicated that she was being very careful in saying, it's your decision.
Yeah. Yeah, they say, I think that we haven't got teachings on Vinaya, and hopefully we will get, but, sometimes they say that if you already have the thought that this is not something, that you don't want to stay a monk and you're thinking about it, or don't want to stay as a nun, at that point, the vow is already damaged, so it's not that, if you already had the thought that this is not valuable or this is not for me, there is a debate whether at this point already, whether you're still a monastic. But I think that probably we need to get clarification about it rather than just listen to me or me kind of saying stuff. We need to hear it from a credible source. So we have a question here from Pooja. It says, I have a general question about Bodhisattva vows. There is a petition that is made to push criminal charges against those people who killed the pregnant elephant in India. Since I have taken the Bodhisattva vows, would it count as breaking those vows if I signed the petition? I do feel too bad for that being who was mercilessly killed and also generated bodhicitta for those people who killed her, as they are all going to suffer for the karma. So I think that Pooja, I think that there is no problem with petitioning for someone to face charges if it's within the legal system. So I think that kind of here, of course, I think that there are different degrees of that, in a sense that, first of all, we live in a society where the law should be upheld. If the law is not upheld, then our society or the rules in our society break apart. If someone is behaving in a way that is illegal or criminal, I think that it is also part of our responsibility as Buddhist practitioners, not just Mahayana practitioners, but Buddhist practitioners, to make sure that we still live in a society that abides by the law. Now, if someone needs to be, when you say the word punish might not be the held to account. Yeah, held to account. Thank you. Held to account. I think that there is no problem in pushing that or supporting that. Also, I think that if we don't hold people to account, there might be repeated offenders, but also it might become a commonplace, a common thing that will happen more likely or by more people if people are not held to account. I think that probably the only thing that I would think of, and I suppose that this is not part of your question, is that let's say that you petition for someone to go through the capital punishment system. I guess that in that case, it's better not to petition someone being put through capital punishment. But otherwise, I certainly think that it's legit to push for a criminal's charge against animal cruelty and so forth. After all, they're also living beings, right? They also want to be happy. They want to be safe. They want to, they cherish their life just like we do. So I think that it's legit. We also have the responsibility to protect the lives of others. And I think that you can view an activity like that where you work for animal welfare, pushing forward either legislations or bills or people held to account if they behave in such a way. If we become active in relation to that, I think that it can come under the banner of generosity, of giving fearlessness, right? Protecting other living beings' life. So, thank you. So let's go back to the material that we've covered today and yesterday. We are now covering the section on purifying negative actions out of the 7 limbs of prayer as preparation for taking up the Bodhisattva vow, which is actually great. Nowadays, not only we study Shandeva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, tomorrow is going to give the Bodhisattva vow again. Yeah, it's like, hold your horses. There's another Bodhisattva vow. So that's great. We can prepare our mind again and again in a better and better way. So I wanted to speak about purification of negativities. We are now going through the text, and there are quite a few verses that come in that section. I wanted to look first of all at the general outline of the four powers. So we have, in confessing negativities by means of completing the four powers, we have, first of all, an extensive explanation of the first power, the power of regret. Then the second power, the power of support. The third power, the power of applying the antidote at all times. And then the fourth, the power of turning away from wrongdoings. Now, those four powers are presented in different orders in different texts. So there is no definite order to the four powers. But I think that before we get to the confession and purification of negativities by the application of the four powers, the first thing that is needed is conviction in karma. Right? So if you remember where karma fits in with the presentation of the Lamrim, you have, you go for refuge. That's presented in the small scope, although of course we go for refuge within the medium scope context, and also definitely as a great scope practitioner. And we spoke about it yesterday, going for refuge in a Mahayana way, linking it up with the cause of refuges. I go for refuge to the Buddha that I will become, to the Mahayana true paths and true cessations that I will generate in my mind. I go for refuge to the Arya Bodhisattva that I will become. So in that sense, bodhicitta is already linked up with going for refuge in a Mahayana way to the resultant refuges. So then we go for refuge, and in the presentation of the small scope, after that we have a presentation of what we need to do. You've gone for refuge. Now you need to have trust of conviction, or conviction of belief in the working of karma, and you take up positive actions. So you lay down negative actions because you trust the working of karma. It's hard for us, isn't it? In a sense that, I think that again, if we draw from, if we speak about different cultures, I think that someone that was raised up in a Buddhist culture, in I think that probably more dominant in Asian countries, I think that people have a greater inclination to trust the working of karma, or also in Indian society. But for people that grew up in my background, I still need to get my head around some of those things. And also when we look at our day-to-day behavior, we can see how on a certain level, superficial level, gross level, we do trust the working of karma. But when we look at the things that we do, it seems that there's still like this underlying either disbelief or at least playing down the force of karma. So how do we gain conviction in the working of karma? Any ideas, any suggestions how to build up your trust in the working of karma?
Well, a fundamental principle in karma, I think that you really need to initially wrap your mind around it, is reincarnation. Mm-hmm. That reincarnation is a fundamental consequence of karma. You
mean reincarnation, not like just for kind of famous lamas, but for each and every one of us? Yeah, rebirth.
Cycling, that concept of cyclic existence.
But if you're a beginner, if you're a beginner in the study of Buddhism, coming, let's say, from our perspective, now what would be your approach to developing trust in karma?
A negative brings a negative result, and a positive brings a positive result, I think. One can get that.
Yeah.
Anyone can see that, it's obvious.
And Chris is saying, see the world around us and consider how conditions caused these events to happen to us collectively and as an individual. That's my WhatsApp. I'm going to link. All right.
And I guess also the concept of impermanence. I think impermanence underpins karma, and I think we can all get that.
Yeah. So I agree with all of you. Now, I've been looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chemo as we go along, and he also gives an advice about how to train a mind in looking at karma, because it is essential for purifying negativities. So it says in the Lamrim Chemo, that's the first volume. It's in page 248. So Jampa is saying, interestingly, Geshe Raptin says Guru Yoga, refuge, and bodhicitta are one and the same practice. Okay, so we'll get to that later, sorry. So in page 248, it says, to have conviction in the teachings of the Buddha, and then to sustain your meditation on them. So if you do not have uncontrived certainty about this quality of truth in the Buddha's teachings, then you will not gain the certainty that will please the conquerors with regards to any of the teachings. So the first advice that Lama Tsongkhapa gives, if I translate it to a just conversational language, is learn, study what the Buddha said. When you see the truth in the Buddha's teachings, then you will also gain conviction or trust in the things that for the time being you cannot ascertain for sure. You know, so if you, particularly if you look at teachings on emptiness, if you, it's not that you hear that most people will get teachings on emptiness right from the very get-go, but we're involved with the Buddhist tradition for some time. You get teachings on emptiness, on selflessness. Not only you listen to the teachings, but you also think about them. You also verify them according to your day-to-day experiences, inquiry, questioning, and so forth. So when you hear about, when you can trust the teachings on emptiness, and also when you've reached your own conclusion, then through that you can also then reach a conclusion with respect to things that are harder to test. Like, for example, the subtle working of karma. We know that on a gross level, karma works in the sense that, I punch someone, if I punch them, they will be unhappy. There is a cause that I create and effect that it brings. There's also, I think that also, as Chris pointed out, in the world around us, we can look at causality in general, how causes produce effects, and then look at our internal world about how karma produces, how our actions produce effects. Also, we increase the knowledge of dependent origination. So speaking about causality is speaking about dependent origination. So through that, in a gradual manner, we can gain better conviction in the trusting of karma. So Jampa is saying, for those whom emptiness makes sense, anything makes sense. Ayana. Yeah, that's spot on. It's really, I find it really encouraging, empowering kind of statement. Just make effort. But Lama Tsongkhapa says with respect to that, some who claim that they've acquired certain knowledge of emptiness are uncertain about karma and its effect and do not value it. This is a mistaken understanding of emptiness. For once you understand emptiness, you will see that it is the meaning of dependent arising, and it will assist you in becoming certain about karma and its effects. So you gain knowledge of the teachings, you gain knowledge of dependent arising, you gain knowledge of causality, and particularly of karma. And then you look at the guidelines of acting in an ethical way. So we mentioned today and also in previous session, the paths of action, the 10 paths of action, and they were taught in a detailed manner, it's a more detailed manner that you would encounter in Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings, in the Lama Rinpoche. So there is a nice presentation of the 10 paths of action, and you can also supplement your understanding with reading other texts, getting other teachings. So you start to think of actions, negative actions that you have done, and then you develop regret for negative actions done before. So of the 4 powers of the antidote, we have the power of basis. Sometimes this is listed as the first. Jampa is adding, for those whom emptiness does not make sense, nothing makes sense. Thank you. And Carrie says, and crappy things happen, and I wonder why me. I remind myself it's karma of what I've done prior. Yeah. So power of the basis, power of regret, power of restraint or turning away from negativities, from faults, and the power of thorough application of the antidote. So of these 4 powers, which one is the most important? Sorry? Regret. Yes. Carrie also says regret. Of the 4 powers, the most essential one is regret. To have regret, you have to know the presentation of karma. I mean, sometimes our purification is half-hearted because of a lack of trust in the working of karma. Our purification is half-hearted because we don't have an adequate sense of regret. And here I can also speak personally, you know. Regret has that overall overarching influence upon the process of purification. If you have regret, you'll also then decide not to do it in the future again. You will turn your back on negativities. And you will also then apply yourself assiduously to a practice of a certain practice as an antidotal power, right? So if you, for example, sometimes if you were involved in a lot of killing, you might apply the remedial antidote of protecting the lives of others, animal liberation and so forth. If you were involved in speaking badly about others, then you will make a concentrated effort to praise the qualities of others. Now, often we speak about practices such as, you know, our teachers are sometimes confusing those formulae that are used in monasteries. You know, it's almost like you repeat the same thing again and again, and they stay in your mind. So normally when the 4 powers of the antidote are mentioned, they say that, like, for example, you make prostrations, circumambulations, you sit down and do mantras and so forth. These are, of course, excellent. But I think that also on top of that, in order to counteract certain tendencies that we have, negative actions that we have, it's good to accustom ourselves to the opposite. If you're involved in the past, with harming others in a particular way, a remedial power would be to counteract that directly, to create new habits, particularly in that area. You've harmed others, protect them. You've slandered others, praise the good qualities. You found that you were divisive before, make a concentrated effort to bring people together, you know, to make them harmonious. So all of these are power of thorough application of the antidote, and then we have the power of the basis. So these are the 4 powers. So we apply the 4 powers, and another thing that I wanted to bring up today is the meaning of purification. What is the meaning of purification? Now, here in this particular point in time, when we look at Chandadeva's text, the power of regret, we use the power of regret as a power in the 4 powers of purification, right? As one of the 4 powers of purification. Now, we say that also one good thing about faults that we've done before is that they can be purified. Even the 4 actions without intervening period. Sorry? 5. Sorry.
Just thought, oh, great.
Yeah.
It's gone down.
Well,
Which one?
discount, yeah. Yeah, even the 5, yeah, even the 5 with immediate, without intervening period, even they can be purified, right? So killing your own father and mother, killing an arhat, drawing a blood from a Buddha, and creating a rift in the Sangha. Even they can be purified with the 4 opponent powers. So what is the meaning of purification?
To eliminate the potential for that.
To eliminate the potential for that. To eliminate the potential for that result to arise in the future. So I'll bring into that discussion now with different questions. So, for example, we said that when you realize emptiness perceptually, then you burn away karma and afflictions. You eliminate karmic seeds with a perceptual realization of emptiness. You will no longer have to experience the result of those actions. So what is the difference between purification or elimination of karmic seeds done with a perceptual realization of emptiness and a purification of the 4 powers of the antidote?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Good question.
Are they the same? Are they different? I mean, of course, kind of I'm asking that, and it's not that I'm expecting you to know that for certain, but sometimes just bringing up a question opens the room for doubt.
teaching a couple of weeks ago when it was about generating, once you've generated bodhicitta, all your previous negativities and those in the future will no longer exist.
Mm. So also,
a bit about one thing of the three you just said. I got lost in
yeah,
there.
yeah, kind of it is said that generating bodhicitta also purifies humongous amounts of negative actions. So in what way?
Going forward,
yeah, and you will not create them in the future. I think that's probably, it's more like, of course, encouraging you to do that. It's not you have to. It has to come with a. You will have to come with a disclaimer, with the fine prints of the meaning of you will not create negativities in the future. I mean,
If you
I'll
don't
make proviso that.
yeah. When you say that the benefits of bodhicitta is that you will purify negative actions and they will not occur again in the future, it has to come with a fine print, with a disclaimer saying that this is the meaning of you will not create them again in the future.
So what was the question?
All right. So what's the question? So the question is, what's the difference between purifying karma with a perceptual realization of emptiness and purifying karma with the 4 powers of the antidote?
Because the perceptual realization.
Yeah, with the perceptual realization, emptiness only comes once you get to the path of seeing, and you go through the seeing event. So with the 4 powers, you can do that before you reach the path of seeing.
All right. So I'm just going to repeat it for the sake of the people at home. So Tupten is saying that with the perceptual realization of emptiness, you can eliminate karma. You can purify karma only once you get to the path of seeing, once you start to eliminate seeing obscurations, whereas with the 4 powers of the antidote, you can do that beforehand. Then Chris is saying, I reckon the emptiness version will be more cleansing. Then one more is saying, the stains left on consciousness with a question mark. All right, so I asked this question just kind of in order to incite interest. You might be interested, you might be less interested, but when you look again at Lama Tsongkhapa in Lama Tsongkhapa's text in page 254, that's the first volume. He speaks about the power of the foundation, which is another way of speaking about the power of the basis. And it says that the negativities, in this translation, they're called sins. Negativities or sins are moved in several ways. So they are removed in several ways. So there are different ways for karma to be purified. So one way is when small suffering occur instead of the great sufferings of rebirth in a miserable realm, which means that you purify with the 4 powers of the antidote. There is a certain action that should have resulted in being born in hell. You've used the 4 powers of the antidote, so you're not born in hell. It says, small suffering occurs instead of great sufferings of rebirth in the miserable realm. So you're not born in the miserable realm, you'll be born as a human being. So, or you can say that, in some sense, you can say that also if you apply similarities to that, you will not be born as a hellish being, you will be born as a dog, with less suffering.
It also says that in relation to the vows as well.
Mm.
You take refuge, once you take those vows and hold them,
Yeah.
Then you...
The cute labradoodle.
You seal off the entry to the lower realms.
Yeah, you seal off the entry to the lower realms. I think that when you take vows, when you maintain them, it is said that you're purifying negativities, and I think that the purification is enacted in this way. So the point that I wanted to make is, and this is just the beginning of that discussion, is that when we speak about the purification using the 4 powers of the antidote, it does not mean to say that we will never experience the result of our negative actions. It means that we will not enjoy the results that would have been there unless we used the 4 powers of the antidote. But we still are likely to experience a certain result of our negativities, and we'll be able to affect the results through the power of our antidotes, through the power of regret, through the power of application of the antidote. The stronger the purification is, the less likely that it will produce this strong result of suffering. So I see that there is a very active commenting sin here. So Jampe is saying, is the 4 opponent powers avenues, the 4 opponent powers avenue has potential to increase grasping a true existence. Perceptual realization of emptiness certainly does not. Yeah, you can trust that purification exists inherently, that negativities exist inherently, that you inherently purify them, that you have inherent purification. So this is because it is a meditation with signs. Okay.
What does that mean?
Meditation with signs is meditation with grasping a true existence. But anyway, so that's one way of purifying. I'm just going to go back to the way of purifying. So small suffering occurs instead of great suffering. That's the first way. Another is that even if you're born in a miserable realm, you do not experience its suffering. So I guess that you can be born in, I don't know, how does it work in hell, in the hells and so forth, and I can't remember. Yeah, you said that you feel a slight breeze in the hot hell. Sometimes what comes up to my mind when I think about it is, we used to joke before with with some of my friends in Israel that grew up in a kibbutz system, in which you have this. I think it's somewhat similar to the environment that we have here. Like, for example, if you think of the brush turkeys, we feed them all the time. I throw scraps from my balcony to the brush turkeys and to the birds. So so you can be born in an environment where you have to fend for yourself and also have quite a lot of, I think, violent struggles or quarrels with others, or you can be born in environments which are more supportive of your livelihood. Anyway, then still another one is that a mere headache in the present life serves to remove the negativity. So instead of being born in a miserable state of existence, you will experience just a headache in this life. I had a massive headache last night, by the way. So you can think about it as a purification of negativity. I will not have to be born in as a maggot. Hopefully. One time, yeah.
No, I was just going to say that happened to me when I had pneumonia and I was in hospital rather than at Choden Rinpoche's teachings, and the message came from Rinpoche. Well, better from Choden Rinpoche. You didn't say better than eons of hot hells. Yeah.
Better than eons of hot hells. Actually, it's a great thing to introduce into a mind training practice. When you think of experiencing problems and difficulties, then you think that, great, I should be positive about it and want to purifying negative actions. But it's not just living it like that in a superficial way. It's also reminding yourself of karma, becoming more determined to shun negative actions, thinking of practicing Tonglen in those situations to increase a virtue and sense of abstention. Then he also says, likewise, the negativities whose effect you must experience for a long time may become ones whose effects you experience for only a short time, or that you need not experience at all. Right, so shortening the duration of the experience. And then it says there is no certainty about how negativities are removed, because it depends on whether the purifier is of great or little strength, whether the remedy is one in which the 4 powers are complete or incomplete, intense or not intense, of long or short duration, and so forth. Right, so this is why it's important to make sure that when we do a practice of purification, that the 4 powers are there strongly, not just recite the mantra, but to do it strongly.
And that strength, that in the first 2 days, that like the actual phrase define the strength?
I think that the strength here,
Sorry, could you just read that?
yeah, I'll read it again. So it says, there is no certainty about how negativities are removed because it depends on whether the purifier is of great or little strength. Like, for example, as a practitioner, you can be a mediocre practitioner or a beginner, let's say a beginner, or you can be already an advanced practitioner in the sense that you're used to it, you've done a lot of practices before, you're doing that on the basis of vows, you're doing that on the basis of, you have a more, I think that you can also think about whether you are purifying it just for your own sake or you're purifying it for the sake of others. What is your attitude with respect to, what is your goal in purification? Is it just limited to suffering in this life or suffering in future lifetime? Is it limited just to wanting to emerge from cyclic existence all in all, or are you purifying for the sake of adopting the Bodhisattva vow in order to attain the state of enlightenment? So in that sense, it depends upon the strength of the practitioner.
Can I just add to that the example that Lama Yeshe gives in becoming Bodhisattva of, because people say, oh, if you do a 3-month Bodhisattva retreat, recite 100,000 mantras, you purify all past negative karma. And so Lama's response is, yes, that is possible if you have single point of concentration throughout the whole retreat. If you're holding the deity and the mantra as inseparable, if your mind doesn't deviate, you have bodhicitta, you have the 4 opponent powers. So it's quite an elaborate thing to think.
Yeah.
It's a very advanced practitioner.
Yeah.
And you're applying, well, it doesn't say a realization of emptiness, but you're also applying, an understanding of emptiness as you're engaging in practice altogether like that.
It's a great fit to do like a 3 months Bodhisattva retreat. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to do retreats in general, but I think that in our environment, for us it's easier as monks and nuns because we've committed ourselves to do it. But I think that for the layperson it's harder. You need to take a break from work, cost money. You need, if you have a relationship or family, you need to set some time aside. It's not something to be taken for granted as something that is easy. I think that regardless of whether you're a layperson or a monastic, you go into one of those retreats to begin with, for the first time. I think that our attitude is to begin with is just to make sure that we finish the mantra count. So we want to think about negativities to generate regret and so forth, but often, at least I speak from a personal, from my own personal experience, the practicalities then take precedence. They become your priority, to finish it on time, to do the session on time, to do it together with others, to do this or that. So it's not to say that it's not good. It's good because definitely, I would assume that you purify negative karma when you do that anyway. You start off with having a good intention. So there is some intention in that. You get used to that, and later on, if you can do it again and again and again and become habituated with it, and this is also part of the strength that we were speaking about. If you're actually habituated with the practicalities, they do no longer need to take the front seat. They can be the practicalities, be at the back, and you do a genuine practice of really generating regret, generating bodhicitta and refuge as the power of support, the power of foundation of your practice. Really kind of saying the mantra, turning your mind to the meaning of the mantra, the different elements, doing the visualization right. That will come in time, but you need to have the first step to do it at least once in order to be able to make it better later
They're
on.
like prerequisites.
Yeah.
You've got to get them down well, so you can then build on it with what the actual retreat is really all about.
Yeah.
But even then,
Yeah.
the actual retreat.
I think it's similar to what Geshe said a while ago. He said that with empowerments, the advice is to take the same empowerment again and again, so that in the first few times you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
After a few times, you can start to understand what's happening and also listen to the instructions, because it is said that without understanding the instructions or the indications that you get, the visualizations, the different things that you need to think of, the empowerments will actually not be obtained. So obviously people like us are not going to get it the first time, but we're not going to do it 5 times to begin with. We're not going to be able to do it at all. So
Well, I mean,
that's the same with retreats like that, or with practices such as purification practice.
And in some ways, this just seems to be something that really underpins progress in Buddhist practice, is that habituation. It just seems to be an essential feature of it. You know,
Yeah.
you might have some understanding, but that means squat if you're not prepared to put in the hours of, repeating the activity, or, repeating the result that you want to achieve. And that goes from simple Lam Rim meditations to the tantrics.
Well, we do the group puja together. We sometimes look at the 7-point mind training. There's those instructions of cherish the practice of the 5 powers as an integrated practice of our entire lifetime. And when you practice the 5 powers on a daily basis, you have the power of habituation, where daily you habituate with that, and that is the force, the power that carries you along throughout all your life.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and I mean, and I just find, having, really enjoyed the Buddhist ritual. I've always really enjoyed the ritual. I mean, that's where the little realizations often happen for me. Like, you've been reading something for many times, then all of a sudden one day you read it, oh my gosh, and
hallelujah, sister. Hallelujah, sister.
Yeah, exactly. But I know that that's what happens for many of us when you do something again and again.
Penny drops, Terry.
A penny drops.
Yeah.
Yeah, one day a penny drops. Yeah.
So Jane is asking, it seems that with the 4 powers, we are counteracting negativities rather than applying antidotes like in meditation and emptiness. Actually, Jane, you do, if in our application of the 4 powers of the antidote, we applying antidote directly, then the application would be even more complete. So it is said that, no, you have the 4 powers of the antidote. One of them is the power of thorough application of the antidote. And as I said, there's the kind of the usual formula that they say, prostration, circumambulations, and so forth. But it is also said that meditation on bodhicitta, meditation on emptiness, is kind of a very strong power of the antidote. So it's not rather that we counter negativities, we also meditate on emptiness. We develop bodhicitta as an actual practice of the antidote for our negativities.
So this is, I heard it from different teachers,
Mm.
and I'm trying to understand it from my own personal practice. So, and these teachers, basically from Gelug tradition, and which they say is studying is more important than circumambulation or doing this purification, reciting the mantras. So I'm curious, what is your stand on it? Like studying as a part of purification? Studying scriptures, memorizing scriptures.
So we get advice from teachers. I think particularly with the Gelug approach, that studying is more important than circumambulation and so forth. I think I tend to agree with them, but I also think that you need sometimes to look at the bigger picture and also to contextualize what they're saying. I think that to do a really effective practice and efficient practice of Bodhisattva, for example, to go on retreats, to do water bowl offerings, and we like doing those 100,000 sets of different things. It sounds pretty kind of a good achievement. If you don't have the knowledge that supports that, those practices will not have a massive effect. Of course, there will be still virtue, but if you want them to be transformative practices without having the knowledge base for that, the transformation would be quite minimal. Also, whatever we do, we want to do it on the basis of understanding. And also, part of what comes up in study is that, when you study, you first of all know what you need to do, but you also sort out your priorities. It's so easy to get sidetracked in, I think, the Western Buddhist world with things that actually are incidental. So you take things that are incidental and you make them paramount, in living out the important things. Training of the mind in the stairs of the path of the three scopes, beginning with the small scope, training your mind along the small scope. So if you don't have that knowledge, it is more likely that you will get sidetracked with things that are incidental. So that's in general. Now, if you also look at, I think that if you also look at it in a contextual way, the way that the geshes study in the monastery consists of many activities of studying. So, as we often hear, they wake up early in the morning, they do they go to puja, then they go to classes, then they do this, they go, they do memorizing, they go to debate and so forth. And it is said that some of those activities are activities of accumulating merit. Now, it still kind of sounds quite interesting, because when you study your life as I think, young monastic in a monastery, you have no idea basically about what you're doing in those pujas, why you're doing those pujas. It's one of those chores. They said that you still accumulate merit in doing that, but it's a chore. It's not that you're doing it wholeheartedly. Maybe at some point in time when you're older, then you understand what you're doing, and it is done with more joy, with better understanding. It's a kind of more of a genuine practice. Of course, the accumulation and purification that come with that become stronger. But altogether, they take those activities to be activities that support your studies. So then when we think of, when I try to think of how they train and what we do here, for example, then I think that for us, rather than to begin with, to get a bit sidetracked with things that might not be that important or that important, I wouldn't say it like that, things that are less important than the quintessential things that we should be practiced, or that we still try to do the things that are really essential in a practice, but not based on knowledge. But first of all, we start with building knowledge. But then together with that, it doesn't mean to say that the only thing that we should be doing is studying. No, there's time for meditation. We have meditation practices that we might be doing at home in the morning. Try your best to structure your day around it. Sometimes you do retreats, sometimes you participate in activities like, water ball offerings, light offering, whatever that Buddhist centers offer. So I think that there is a way of offering an integrated approach to what the geshes say, but to be able to know that, first of all, you need to begin with studying and then work out the priorities. And once you know what your priorities are, and also what is your level of development, when you know how to assess it, then you can actually better divide your time between study and practice. And study itself is also a practice. I mean, I think that one thing that I've learned over the years is that having to listen to the geshes and to think about it again and again and discuss it with others, it is a transformative process. It's not that you just listen passively and then you go off and do something else. Through thinking about the teachings and discussing them with others and debating them with others and raising questions, your mind transforms, and this is also a meaning of practice. All right. So we'll leave it here for now. So, okay. So I will send out the review questions today. I will send out an exam in the next 2 or 3 days. So I don't have to rush till Monday. I might send it only on Monday, see how I manage in this weekend, but you'll have, I think, the whole week next week to do it. And then we'll come back later on and then continue to enjoy Shantideva's text. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for the effort in this module, and see you soon. I'll put the prayers on the screen. Dinyo Dodna Lama Sange Dogyune Dorwachi Kyamalupa De Salagopa Sho Dusan Chorin Poche Makepa Nan Kyagyochi Kyapan Yampa Mepa Gone Gondo Pewa Sho Kowe Shinkandi Pendande Wa Malu Juwene Chenre Siwan Tenzin Gyatsoi Shape Site Badu Tengyochi Tu Tzu Jan Shin Jan Gun Gyawe Tenzin Kyon Pewe Punzo Do Poze Cho Son Kowe Le Mon Tu Du Bahada Sodu Je Mundu Shape Shu.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Sorry?
See you tomorrow, hopefully.
All right, yeah. So tomorrow, Geshe will be teaching the Lamrim at 10:30. Then His Holiness is giving the Vajrasattva vow. Sorry, Bodhisattva vow. Bodhisattva vow at 1:30 usual time. Then we have 4 p.m. Shakyamuni Buddha Puja. Do we still have space for people to come if they want?
Yes, we've still got space for people to come.
All right.
Contact me.
Thank you. So if you want to come and join us tomorrow for the pujas.
There's 7 more spots.
All right, so we still have 7 spots for grab. So be merry and see you when we see you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we would love to see you. Thank you.
And happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.